Okay, good evening. My name is Jeannie Hardy, and I am the Temecula Valley Council PTA Executive Vice President. At this time, I'd like you all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. It's my pleasure to welcome you to what has become a PTA tradition, hosting an opportunity for voters and prospective voters to hear from those who seek to represent us on our local school board. TVCPTA represents more than 10,000 members, and we advocate for almost 30,000 students in our district, along with their families, teachers, and staff. This year marks our 27th year of service to the schools in the Temecula Valley Unified School District. We are part of the California State PTA and National PTA, the oldest and largest child advocacy group in the nation. Our message tonight is very simple. While we want you to actively participate in the educational process in Temecula, that's what we want. Your interest and desire to make an informed decision on November 8th is evidenced by your attendance tonight, and we thank you. We are honored to have with us tonight Mr. ROLAND SKUMAWITZ, former superintendent, ROLAND Elementary School District. Mr. SKUMAWITZ has graciously agreed to be our moderator, and we thank him for being here. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you of a few things. The November 8th election is the first by trustee area election for the TVUSD governing board. In Area 1, yellow on the map to my left, Lee Darling ran uncontested and has been declared the winner. His name will not appear on the official ballot. In Trustee Area 5, purple, incumbent KRISTI RUTZ-ROBBINS faces challenger RONALD PRENTICE. Both their names will be on the official November 8th ballot. Only voters in Trustee Area 5 will be allowed to vote for their representative. The term of office for trustees in Area 2, 3, 4 expires in December 2018. The last day to register to vote in the November 8th general election is October 24th. Voter registration materials, as well as any candidate-provided campaign materials, are located out in the back of the room in the lobby where you entered. I'd also like to share some information about our school board. In the Temecula School District, the governing board consists of 5 members whose terms are staggered so that as close as possible, half of the members are elected in even-numbered years. The term of office for a school board member elected in a regular election is 4 years. The term of office begins on the first Friday in December after the November 8th election. Board members are compensated. Each board member receives $811.13 per month. A board member also receives benefits. The TVUSD strategic plan is located on the district website at www.tvusd.k12.ca.us. On the website, board meeting dates, agendas, and minutes are posted. The agenda for regular meetings must be posted on the website and at the district office at least 72 hours prior. Parents, students, and the general public are encouraged to attend board meetings. The superintendent serves as the secretary to the board. In accordance with board policy, the board delegates to the superintendent the authority to carry out any decisions which it delegates. At this point, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Lynn Shaver, Temecula Valley Council PTA Family Engagement Chairperson. Lynn?
Thanks, Jeannie. As parents and guardians, our job is to advocate for our students. As representative of PTA, our job is to advocate for all students. The local and board is critical of public link to public schools. However, community involvement in education is critical to our success. The government board and superintendent need our opinions and feedbacks to make and implement effective policy. I would now like to introduce our moderator this evening, Mr. ROLAND SKUMAWITZ. Mr. SKUMAWITZ holds a master's degree in public administration from USC and a Bachelor of Science degree in Social Studies from Cal Poly Pomona. He has 35 years of experience in education, including 19 years of service as a superintendent of ROLAND School District. He now serves as executive director of Temecula Preparatory School. Mr. SKUMAWITZ, we turn this program over to you.
There was a little stumble when you said USC. You must have gone to UCLA.
Oh, I got USC.
Thank you, Lynn, and thank you to the Temecula Valley Council of PTAs. To reiterate what was just said, we're here tonight because it's important for us to choose wisely when we vote. School boards must incorporate their community views of what students should know and be able to do, what students should know and be able to do into decisions about school programs. School boards are accessible to the public and accountable to their performance in schools. School boards are the watchdog of community education. They ensure that students get the best education for the tax dollar. Citizen oversight of local government is the cornerstone of democracy in the United States. The role of the 5 governing board members who sit on your locally elected school board is to ensure that our school district is responsive to the values, beliefs, and priorities of this community. The board fulfills this role by performing 5 major responsibilities. Number 1, setting direction. Number 2, establishing an effective and efficient structure. Number 3, providing support. Number 4, ensuring accountability. And number 5, providing community leadership as advocates for students, the school district, and public schools. So let's review briefly the format for tonight. 2 representatives from the PTA, Kathy Resler and Nancy Olivas, right in the front row, are our timekeepers tonight. They will hold up a yellow card when the time is halfway up and a red card when time is up. And as we know from our traffic laws, yellow means speed up. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for introduction and opening statement, including explanation of why he or she is running for the board. Each candidate will respond with 1-minute answers to each of 3 questions previously submitted to you by TVCPTA. We may also have some further questions from the audience. After each candidate has responded to questions at approximately 7:20, each candidate will present a 1-minute closing statement. So are those rules clear? Good. Passed your first test of being a board member. Let's hear from the candidates tonight. So as this is the first by-trustee-area election, the only 2 candidates' names who will appear on the ballot are in Trustee Area 5, Dr. KRISTI RUTZ-ROBBINS, wave, and Ron Prentice. In Trustee Area 1, Lee Darling is the winner by default, as he ran uncontested for that seat. We have asked Mr. Darling here tonight as a courtesy to give him an opportunity to meet his future constituents. And you're welcome to have an opening statement. After that, you gotta leave. No, kidding. If I could have each of you acknowledge, well, we just did. All right, so each of you will talk for 2 minutes in this order. Dr. Robbins, you'll go first, Ron Prentice, and then Lee Darling. You're on.
Thank you. Hello, I'm KRISTI RUTZ-ROBBINS. I was elected to the school board in 2008, and I'm running for a re-election because I believe in the power of public schools to transform students' lives, and that the education of the next generation is the most important work we do as a society. We are the highest performing district in Riverside County and one of the highest performing districts in the state. I want to continue to support the great work of this district. I have a PhD from Michigan State University and teach at California State University, San Marcos. I understand what our students need to be successful at college. Since I've been on the board, the percentage of students who have completed the required courses to apply to college has risen from 40% to 67%. I ran for the board as a parent, and I am still a district parent. I was a volunteer for the Meet the Masters program for a decade. The generous PTA funded this program after art teachers were cut from the elementary schools. After I was elected, we wrote a master plan for art education. It meets the state standards for art education, and now we have rehired elementary school art and music teachers back. My perspective as a mom helps inform my decision-making. My child loved PE, and then the program was cut. PE matters. It gets kids to school. I've helped to make sure we put PE back in our elementary schools. Research shows us that students engaged in sports do better in school, and I want to continue expanding the extracurricular options in our middle and high schools. We have the highest graduation rate in Riverside County. Our students score well on CAST, the Smarter Balance assessments. We are closing the achievement gap for our socially economically disadvantaged youth and our English language learners. We are proud of our teachers' laser-focused work on student success, proud of the intervention work they do, proud of the staff development our administrators offer. They are dedicated to supporting students, and it shows. All this work is supported by the board mission and goals and our classified staff. This is my team, and I want to stay in the competition. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Prentice?
Yeah, thanks for coming. As you know, my name is Ron Prentice. I'm running against Ms. RUTZ-ROBBINS in Area 5. A few words about me. I'm an aerospace engineer. I've been working in the defense industry for about 40 years. I have a master's degree in aerospace engineering from the University of Minnesota. I also attended classes at UCLA for a brief time working on a PhD. I was a teaching assistant when I was a graduate student at Minnesota, and I also was a part-time instructor at Cal Poly Pomona during the late 70s when I was working for General Dynamics. My primary reason for wanting to serve on the Temecula School Board is pretty simple. I just want to make sure that the public education remains public and is not taken over by for-profit corporate interests. I want to make sure that all the students, regardless of socioeconomic status, have access to a quality education provided by well-trained professionals and administered by people with a background in education. That quality education should include not only the courses students will need to prepare themselves for the challenges of the 21st century job market, but also courses in the arts and humanities, because the students will not only be employees and consumers, but they will be citizens. And that's, I think, with all the responsibilities that entails. I think that's extremely important. Thank you.
Mr. Darling?
My name is Lee Darling. A little bit about me. I went to UC Irvine after graduating from Great Oak High School in 2007. I got my undergraduate degree in urban studies, and I stayed there and got my master's degree in urban and regional planning. For me, when I saw this opportunity, the vacancy that was going to be in my trustee area, the first thing that came to my mind was what an opportunity it would be for me to give back to the community that helped shape me and helped define some of my successes. Many of the teachers and staff and individuals that were in the district 10 years ago when I was here remain, and I knew that by becoming a board member I can make a direct impact on the students that are here now. I currently work for a school district now. I tend to know the ins and outs of how decision-making occurs at a district level, typically sitting on the other side of the podium. But I do understand the processes and am highly involved in that with my in my current position. And for me, because I have that unique perspective of being a student not too many years ago in this district, my goal is to do my part in ensuring that every student that's in this district currently and any student that comes through this district is afforded the same opportunities and more opportunities than I had when I walked through these halls not too many years ago. And I think if we do that, keeping in mind making student-centered decisions and keeping all of our stakeholders at mind, our community, our teachers, our parents, and our students, I think we'll be doing a great job up here. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have the 3 questions that have been prepared. You'll have 1 minute each to respond. The first question is, what do you believe is the #1 issue facing the district at this time, and why? Mr. Prentice, you have first shot.
Oh, yeah. I think it's not just this district. My response was really addressed nationally. And as I mentioned in my introduction, I'm concerned about the corporatization, or better for me, the Walmartification of our public school system. And I realize that this is not an immediate threat here in Temecula, but judging by what's happening in LA, where something like 50% of the schools are now charters run by far-off education management organizations, I think there'll always be pressure to apply free market principles to education, and I think in the long run that's going to be detrimental to our district's students.
Okay, Dr. RUTZ-ROBBINS.
This is really a two-part question. Nationally, the greatest problem facing education, facing TVUSD, is how do we make sure all students are successful? How do we do this? Closing the achievement gap is the most central issue in education. If we believe that every child can learn and that it is our responsibility as a public school system to make sure that that happens, we can address the problem. We are putting into place programs to catch kids before they fail, to intervene before they fall behind, and to help make sure they're successful. Second part is TVUSD is receiving less LCFF funding than our surrounding districts, to a tune of 3 to 30 million less, depending on which district you're comparing us to. This will create a challenge for us in terms of offering competitive compensation for teachers, staff, and administrators, and in meeting our LCFF expectations. This is the problem that Temecula will be facing from here on out. However, I've weathered the Great Recession and the painful cuts to people and programs while still seeing a rise in student success, and I have no doubt that we can rise to the challenge.
Thank you. Mr. Darling?
So kind of to piggyback off that answer, I kind of have a similar take on it. You know, we all work very hard to live in a community that we live in, and with that comes the expectation that our school and our school district is just as great as the community that we do live in. But as was just stated, you know, LCFF, which is highly based on the free or reduced number in this district, which is relatively low in comparison to many districts around us, we'd be doing ourselves an injustice if we didn't recognize that we're going to have to make some tough financial decisions here in the near future. It'll take a lot of communication, a lot of work between our stakeholders, but that is something that will likely arise. As many of you know, Prop 55 is going to be on the ballot. That will maybe dictate how severe those decisions are going to, how severe those decisions will be. But that is a reality of the district that we live in. So when we face those decisions, it'll be a team effort to make sure that we lay everything out and make the decisions that are in best interest of our students and our community.
I wonder if I could expand just for a second on that question. Would any of you like to address Prop 55?
Is that a question?
Yes.
Or what do we think about Prop 55?
Yes.
The school board has backed that,
Okay.
formally backed that as something that we believe needs to be passed.
Mr. Darling, did you want to comment on it?
You know, I think I'd have to agree at this point in time. In a district like ours, where you know the median income of our community is relatively high, but again the free and reduced number is low. Ballots like measures on the ballot such as Prop 55 have a more significant impact on our district on many, or more so than some of the others. So, with that in mind, I do think it'll be a great thing to move forward with.
Thank you. Mr. Prentice, did you want to
Yeah,
comment?
I would tend to agree, and I understand from attending the last board meeting that there's a shortfall projected, so I think 55 would probably be necessary.
All right, thank you. Our second question is, what do you think this school district does well, and what do you think should be improved? Dr. RUTZ-ROBBINS, you're up first.
Thank you. We're doing a great job graduating students and getting students ready for college. This is due to our high-quality teaching and our smart advising. Intervention is the key to student success, and we have reduced the number of students who fail classes as a result. Active engagement in the classroom is another key to student success, and as a result of training focused on active engagement teaching strategies, our students' success rate has grown. We are doing a great job teaching. What do we need to improve upon? One of the areas I'd like to see us improve on is our family engagement. Research links high levels of family engagement with student success, independent of socioeconomic factors. I'd like to see us expand on the good work we have started in a number of ways. We need a full parent center that offers parenting classes, helps parent understand student homework, and connects them to community services. We need to communicate with and survey our families about the work we do, and how they can be part of that in a way that truly gives parents a voice.
Thank you. Mr. Prentice?
I've been attending the school board meetings, tried consistently for about the last year, and what impressed me the most was the amount of effort that was directed toward helping disadvantaged kids low-income kids, foster kids, English learners. So I think we do an excellent job of trying to provide, equality of opportunity for these people in the district, and at the same time maintaining high academic standards. I know the district has its challenges, but from my limited vantage point from where I was as a kind of a spectator, I didn't really see anything that was done poorly in the district. I saw a lot of people go up there and make some complaints, but I think by and large, the district has been run very well. If I'm elected, maybe I'll become more familiar with the details of the operations, and it'll be obvious to me where improvements are needed.
Thank you. Mr. Darling?
Kind of again, to echo an earlier comment, when this question is the hardest question to answer of the three that we face, it kind of speaks volumes to what the community, the teachers, staff, and what our students are able to do in this district. It was difficult to find exactly how to answer this question because I think there are so many things that Temecula Valley does that are great. One thing I did notice, and as was mentioned earlier, we have high-performing schools throughout the district, in particular our high schools. But there is a bit of a difference between Great Oak, our southernmost school, and maybe our two other high schools, Temecula Valley and Chaparral. I'd be interested to see what it is that separates the few percentage points in graduation rate, the few hundred points in ranking based on various sources that separate those three districts that are those three schools within our district that, though the demographics change from south to north in our district, there aren't much. So I would like to explore that a little bit more.
Thank you. Our third question, please state your feelings about the role of VAPA or VAPA?
VAPA.
VAPA? Don't get them confused with the vaping. Programs in grades K-12. Do you want to restate it? Please state your feelings about the role of VAPA programs in grades K-12. Mr. Prentice, you're up first.
The emphasis in the last several years, at least nationally, is focused on education as a component of national economic gain, and hence there's been this prioritization of the so-called STEM courses. Now, since I come from a scientific background, I understand the importance of that part of the curriculum, but it's just one component of a complete liberal education, and as I mentioned earlier, our job is not just to produce workers and consumers, but citizens capable of critical thought. And I thought, I'm a big reader of a person named Martha Nussbaum. She teaches philosophy at the University of Chicago, and she writes a lot about education policy. I was going to quote her what she says about the arts. Quote, "The arts," and she includes performing arts like dance and music, "are extremely valuable for the development of sympathy and imagination. But one can add more, as I do with my study of the Chicago Children's Choir. The arts bring kids together across lines of class, race, and religion in an atmosphere of mutual reliance and trust, and in this way do more than the typical academic classroom. To break down social barriers, they also promote a sense of discipline and accountability to others, and they show kids from a minority culture that all world cultures are open to them." So I strongly endorse that, and I think that it's a very necessary part of education.
Thank you. Dr. RUTZ-ROBBINS?
The visual and performing arts, commonly known as VAPA, in case someone in here isn't from education, are an essential part of American students' education. Creativity is the element that makes our country so great. VAPA supports the expansion of creativity in our students. How we solve problems, develop and market products, and innovate relies on creative abilities. VAPA reaches beyond VAPA, as Steve Jobs has so beautifully shown us. I believe we need to expand our elementary program so students have both visual and performing arts each week, because currently it's either or. I want to make sure to continue to press for a 7-period day so that we can make room in students' schedules so they can be college-ready and have the opportunity to take the full range of the arts. VAPA is essential and should be available for all students.
Thank you. Mr. Darling?
I believe there's no denying that the value that visual and performing arts programs have for our students. I think many studies have gone far and beyond to show their educational benefits and how they impact different areas, different subject matter, how students learn and are creative in learning. In addition to those, I think visual and performing arts tend to teach things that typical classrooms don't. Dedication, independent commitment to something and bettering yourself. Those things aren't necessarily found all the time in a traditional classroom setting. So the value of these programs, I think, is very important. And unfortunately, I think when we are faced with tough financial decisions, they're always the first things that come to the board. They're always the first thing that come to play. So I think as we look into our future, we have to make sure that we're considering the value of these programs and measuring the successes that our students have with them in making any future decisions about these programs.
Thank you. That concludes our first three questions. Lynn, are there any other questions from the audience that were entertaining? No? Okay. Well, I was supposed to wait till 7:20 to see the next thing. We do have some questions. Okay.
Do you want me to speak out or bring it to you? Or?
Would you like to go to the podium?
Good evening, candidates. My question for you, all three of you. How would you support a district policy or policy direction change that was passed by a 4-1 vote and you were the one opposing vote?
Sir, before you leave, would you mind introducing yourself?
Certainly. Vince O'Neill, former board member.
Thank you. Who'd like to go first?
I can answer that.
Okay.
When a vote goes down 4-1 and you are the board member that was the one, the issue is over. As a board member, you then support the majority board decision.
Thank you. Mr. Darling, would you like to comment?
Sure. A board member, a board is a team. I don't think the expectation is that every member of this board will always agree on every decision, because that's not the reality. But as was stated, once a decision is made, it is the responsibility of a board to support that decision moving forward, regardless of what end it is you're on, and that's my stance on that.
Mr. Prentice?
Yeah, I guess, those are the ground rules, right? that's the charter of the board. I wouldn't like that very much, but I'd have to support the board. I think those are the rules. That's my understanding anyway.
Good answer. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself.
Be happy to, thank you. My name is Jeff Kingsburg. I'm currently the president of the Temecula Valley Educators, and I'm a 30-year district resident and been teaching in the district for 30 years. My question is kind of a how do you see your role question, and how do you balance, and I'd like you to elaborate a little bit, how do you balance between the roles of being a supporter and spokesperson of district policy? So again, supporter and spokesperson, how do you weigh that against being a community representative with an obligation to question and practice oversight of district policy? How do you sort that out? Thank you.
Mr. Prentice.
I was hoping you'd ask her first. It's a difficult question. My role as a board member, I guess is, overseeing the issues that come before the board, try to come to some consensus, I guess, on tough issues like negotiations with the unions and that kind of thing. But I guess I also have a responsibility to the community at large. I don't have a lot of experience in that kind of thing, so I'm not sure quite how to answer that. I'll pass it on to KRISTI or Mr. Darling.
Dr. RUTZ-ROBBINS?
As a board member, I listen to multiple sources of information on topics. I ask questions So I am never not in the role of a community person asking the district tough questions. Some of those questions people don't see, some of the questions I ask in advance. And I am always a supporter of the district. So I try to help advocate for public outreach. How do we communicate the decisions we've made? How do we communicate what we're doing for students? And how do we communicate district needs? I do both.
Thank you. Mr. Darling?
Sure, I'd just like to add, I think along with that question is the expectation of a level of transparency and communication as board members. I think a lot of that being able to clearly dictate as much as possible. Of course, there's things that remain confidential for different reasons, but being able to clearly communicate those to the constituents, to the unions or the students, the teachers, the staff, and providing that transparency as to why decisions are made plays a key role in that. We're all members of this community. Myself, I have a daughter who will be in school by the time this term is over. So those thoughts kind of always resonate in the back of my mind, that we're not just making decisions, at large for the community, but some of us, we have some personal taking as well. But, our obligation is to make decisions that best serve the majority. And if we can do that with a high level of transparency and communication, I think we'll be on the right track.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? One more.
Again, Vince O'Neill. Describe why it is important to have strong partnerships with the City of Temecula, PTA, and all of their city council members and board members.
Thank you. Mr. Darling?
I'll take first stab at it.
Yeah, you get to go first.
I think kind of what we alluded to earlier with the state of the district in terms of our financial situation, LCFF, low numbers of free and reduced. Because of that, we're going to rely heavily on our community, on those organizations to support some of the programs that are going to be most affected by the fiscal realities of the district. Community engagement and those sorts of organizations really do help booster the success of our students. So I will leave it at that.
Mr. Prentice?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Chrissy brought up, or maybe it was Mr. Darling, about how if there's a budget crunch that comes and we have to make a decision between firing the English teacher or the computer programming teacher, we'll need community support in case, for instance, we need to float a bond or something to cover all those costs. So the community's involvement is extremely important for the operation of the district.
Dr. RUTZ-ROBBINS?
It's important for the city to help support the schools, and one way as a board member you can do that is to advocate. Our city helps fund our fields. We have joint use agreement, and this is important. The city also pays for part of our SRO officers on campus. I think not many people are aware of that. So it's critical that board members create ties with the city so that we can advocate for students. In terms of building support with the PTA, it's essential. The PTA is the lifeblood and heartbeat of all of our schools. They provide the supports, they provide sometimes the fun, and they are providing the advocacy. It's the PTA that advocates for student needs, and we need them. So it's important that board members build relationships and listen and advocate with the PTA.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, at this time, in reverse order this time, starting with Mr. Darling, then Mr. Prentice, and ending with Dr. RUTZ-ROBBINS, please present any closing remarks and tell us why you believe you should be on the board.
I just want to reiterate that this district played a large role in who I am and my successes, and it is my goal to give those things back to all of our students that are here and the students that will come through. if we keep in mind, as I mentioned, keeping our students first, making student-centered decisions, but also considering all of our stakeholders when making these decisions, I think that my goal can be reached, and I hope to see that over this term.
Thank you. Mr. Prentice?
Yeah, I'll be very succinct. I'm just going to kind of repeat what I said in my reason for running, is that I think there should be somebody on the board who is very skeptical of free market solutions applied to public education. I just want to make sure that we're not taken over by, like I say, these education management associations or organizations operating far away, basically, if not for-profit, at least channeling a lot of money into administrative costs at the expense of instructional costs, that kind of thing. So I want to make sure that there's somebody on the board that is skeptical of that kind of thing, and that would be me.
Thank you. Dr. RUTZ-ROBBINS?
I'm running again because I have work still to do. We have a 93% graduation rate, the highest in the county. We have blue ribbon schools, but it's not enough. We have achievement gaps we can get rid of. We are putting programs in place to do this, and I want to make sure that we keep our eyes on that. Our professional learning communities, intervention, and active engagement teaching practices are research-based approaches to solving the greatest problem in education, making sure all students succeed. Connecting students through the arts, through PE, sports, and clubs helps them be successful. We are making a difference every day. School boards set district priorities and help focus staff time, energy, and district resources on student success. I've been part of a fabulous team of people who are dedicated to improving student success, and it has shown in our rising graduation rates, college readiness rates, and state assessment scores. I want to continue that great work.
Thank you, and thank you to all of you. Jeannie?
Yes, this concludes our presentation. We'd like to thank all our candidates and all of you for attending tonight. Please don't forget to register to vote online or pick up voter registration and other materials from the tables in the back. And most importantly, on behalf of TVCPTA, we urge you to exercise your civic responsibility and vote on November 8th. Thank you and good night.
Oh, hey.